So I'm very delighted to introduce our the last keynote and our two speakers. In the last session, David Max was asking for a more STS approach. I think that we will have some with this keynote, and I'm very glad to have you both of you, Nicolas and François, here, because I think in my own personal journey toward this subject, both of you were very important and bring to me some very interesting questions. So that's why I suggest you do this kind of innovative format. Would be kind of a discussions on. When we planned to do it, we were hoping to have you both in the same room, but we'll have to adapt. And so Nicolas will be with us here in Geneva, and François is somewhere lost in the Morvan in Burgundy. So just to say a few words, Nicolas, you're a professor of design at the ED, so it's the
Geneva School of Art and Design.
Yeah. And you work on various subjects, including smartphone. You have just a very great book that came out last month. Unfortunately, it's only in French, but there's a lot of picture, and there's an open edition that you can do online or for free. So please, if you're interested, feel free to. It's Métis Press that published the book. And François, you are a musician and sociologist, and you're working on music for several years, and you started to work on this question of arts and ecological crisis, or you will say which word you want to use to talk about this subject. A few years ago, with the project focusing on performing arts, which I guess you're going to talk about. Yeah. So the floor is yours, and thank you, both of you, for accepting our invitation.
All right. So hi, everyone. Thank you, Loïc and Marlene, for the invitation. So I'm going to start with a few words of introduction, and then we'll go from myself to François and back again to me, and then François again. So as you can see from the slide, our topic, the title is super broad. It's basically close to the title of the events. And as you can see as well, François is going to take care of sustainability and going to be taking care of arts. which is no, I'm joking, but it's half joking actually. What we want to do in this last part of the day is to give you our perspective that is kind of grounded in different case studies based on our own research that tries to show a certain angle about arts can approach sustainability. And I mean, as usual with this kind of context, it's good to start with definitions. So we're going to start with François, who will give a short intro about what we mean by sustainability in this context.
Hi everybody.
Slides doesn't change.
Okay. Hi everybody. Thanks for the invitation. I hope you are able to listen to me. You hear me well. So yes, we have a few words to start. So first thing is that what we are speaking about is art and sustainability, but we want to speak about what I would call the context. It's not a very good word for different reasons, but okay. So yes, we want to make clear that we are speaking about sustainability, particularly in the context of Anthropocene, and I don't know what is Anthropocene. We can have many discussions, but I must say that we can agree about two things. I mean, facts, if you prefer. That Anthropocene is that the fact that human activity became a geological force, and, which is probably also very important, that natural phenomena are beyond control. So it's not only that humanity, industrialization, impact, climate, diversity, and so on. It's also that nature became a very strong force. This is the first thing. And of course, when we speak about that, it means that the idea itself of stability, sustainability has to be thought in a different way. Yeah, okay, we have to take care of this. And the second thing about Anthropocene is that for not only for academics, because we are not alone in the world, but also for academics, it means that the modern cosmogony is very real. It's not only the separation between nature and humanity, it's all the systems of knowledge, and specifically for this keynote, the question of ecology. So yes, thank you. Okay. Yes, so normally ecology, because sustainability is also connected with ecology, has also two significations. The first, it means ecology means a self-sufficient system. The usual word now often is ecosystem, which means yeah, a self-sufficient system means a system which works by itself with a internal regulation. And the second meaning of ecology, strongly connected with the first meaning, is that nature is the model of this self-sufficient system. Yeah, with the Anthropocene, which is in fact not very new, it's a conscience about that which is new. We don't have no more stability, but we don't have no more nature in a certain way. And yes, it's very important to understand that we are speaking today in a moment where it's not only the world which is in crisis, but the concept too. And it's true also for ecological concept. Okay, then I'm going to talk about sustainability now. Yes, so it has been used in many different places for a long time now, probably since the 70s. But yeah, sustainability means normally, again, a close and self-sufficient ecosystem or system. So it means a system which is able to live by itself. So let's say that, yeah. But there is another sense which is regularly introduced, and particularly since the 70s. It's the idea that it's a condition, sustainability, for good development, not only for economical development, sustainable development, développement durable in French, but that you can do something and you have to take care of the sustainability of the things, the system, the world, the enterprise, anything about which you are speaking about. So yes, so sustainability is affected like ecology, ecosystem, and so on by the Anthropocene situation, of course. And then Okay, now I would, yes, I have, yes, those three definitions. Now I would like to go to the next. When people speak about the relation between art and sustainability, many people speak about, most of the people speak about, again, two things. They speak about the capacity of art, the power of art to sustain sustainability, if I can say this like that. For instance, if you play music or if you have music in a traditional society, it's an element of the sustainability of the society itself. Okay? And there is a second sense, which is often used, and especially in the professional worlds. And it's a bit the same that sustainable development. It means that it's necessary, or it's possible, to produce, to create, to sell art in a sustainable way. So you can play many concerts, you can produce records, you can make streamings. If you are not too violent in terms of carbon pollution and so on. So so when we speak about art and sustainability, in other words, we speak about, firstly, the capacity of art to guarantee sustainability, or we speak about the fact that art must be sustainable. That's it for me.
All right.
You have our It's the background for sustainability for our common speech now.
Okay, so François gave like the introduction about like what he meant by sustainability, and he described like how it could be related to art, and like a quick definition about.
No, don't worry. I'm just trying to see if we can put you also on the screen.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. To the other. My voice is not enough.
Yeah. But go ahead and
okay.
I'll keep.
Okay. As a follow-up to what François just presented, the word art is kind of like polysemic, and it's kind of like, it could be understood in many ways, as we could see from the previous presentation. So probably to put things like on the table, the way we approach it here in this presentation is to adopt like a pragmatic perspective, illustrated here by like one reference that is quite relevant to François and myself, like the book Art Words by Howard Becker. And there are many ways to deal with art. I work in an art school here in Geneva, so for my colleagues, especially the historians of art, the important part is to focus on art pieces, les œuvres, or to focus on like the figures, the artist figures, and that's totally fine in their perspective. But what we are interested in here, and the way we use the term art, is closer to the definition that Becker gave in this book as a focus on the activities, on the practices, like production, like distribution, like the network that artists build around their work. And you have like this quote that I think quite summarizes the perspective here as taking art to denote the network of people whose cooperative activity, organized via the joint knowledge of conventional means of doing things, produces the kind of artworks that art world is noted for. So of course, in doing this, like Becker avoids like to have a definition of art and focuses mostly with his pragmatic perspective, like close to the Chicago School of Sociology, into the focus on practices. And there's this other quote that I think could be relevant to keep in mind for the rest of the talk. And I highlighted like the blue part, which obviously is exactly where where François' face is on the screen, but that's fine. Instead of giving a definition about art, now it's even worse. Instead of giving the definition, Baker says that by observing the artwork, making those distinctions about what is art, what is not art, rather than trying to do it to define that ourselves, we can understand how I mean, what goes on in this word. And what goes on in that word is what we're going to be talking about in the next minutes. Meaning, like, we will be interested in showing like different cases from our own field research, François and myself, to, well, just show some examples and their implications about what it means when artists deal or address this kind of like sustainable practices that François mentioned before. So I would start with some examples, like probably for like 15, 20 minutes, and then François will give you examples from his field research. In my case, I have to say that I'm working in an art and design school, which is like close to new media art, electronic music, video games. So the kind of art, so to say, and artistic practices that I'm going to be talking about are, of course, like part of this. It's a kind of a limited portion of the different artworks that exist, but then obviously François will expand things with performance art and music. So what I'm going to show you is just like a series of projects, like from I have some kind of like some kind of repository of different examples that I always like to show as some sort of stimuli to discuss those issues. They're obviously related to field research, teaching, and sometimes my own research project, which can be related with like design and recherche action, like research through projects. And there's not like, it's not like there's a proper like methodology for this corpus. I just selected some of the most salient projects that I found relevant for the discussion here. And some might look a bit weird from an external perspective, but here you have like probably you're not familiar with this, but there was an era back in the 80s where video games existed as cartridges that you'd have to plug in like your computer. So this is a Commodore 64, that computer that existed like in the mid 80s. And it's an artifact that was, I mean, this console was discontinued by the company doing it like in the 90s. So it's no longer produced, but there's still communities of people here and there on this planet developing, creating games for this kind of computer that you can buy in secondhand shop or eBay. And there's like there are some like parties on weekends, especially in Scandinavia, where teenagers from 16 years old to 20 years old would like program those machines and create like cartridges like this that you could plug on their secondhand like both computers and generate music and some kind of video games. And I do find it interesting in the sense that if you're like 16 or 19, you're like way too young to have known this. So it's not like, we wouldn't say like they do it out of nostalgia. They do it more like and not necessarily out of like a really I'm not necessarily convinced it's about sustainability, but in doing so, what they do is to make this object that it was supposed to be over, like the Commodore 64, exist still nowadays, and reinvent like a sort of video game genre from the 80s and make it exist nowadays. And they do it by like thinking about the limits about what it means to create a video game nowadays. It's not about using the fastest computer or the most efficient computer. They use like this very old and limited technology, but they try to push the limits to the technology in a way that it could be like intriguing from their own perspective. Next example is it's close to that is Ian Bogost is also a game designer who developed like a series of video game around like 2010 on the I think it's Atari 2600, like an old console as well. And here again, it's the same idea of like using an old platform and try to reinvent like an experience using like a so-called dead media, like this console that you can only find in second-hand shop. Of course, it's slow. Of course, the aesthetic is limited. Of course, the interface is way more limited than what exists nowadays. But his point was to show what it means to like to decelerate, to pursue a different kind of approach in creating games in the 21st century. And in this kind of community, there's not just a focus on the software, on the games. There's also a very important focus on the object, the hardware. And here I took a tweet from one of those artists in this music/video game scene, who's I mean, I find it interesting because he basically mentions how pulling apart a certain computer from the 80s in order to harvest, to extract certain microchips from the device was something that is common in this community. We've all been there before. And of course, here we don't see what he's making out of this, but in general, in this kind of community, the artist needs or are interested in a specific microchip because of the kind of sound they produce, because of the aesthetical ambience they create, and they go as far as this, like to tear apart devices and to like somehow recycle those processors to do something. And doing something with it means sometimes using the processors from the past or some kind of versions of the technology of the past as an hybrid with technologies of today. So here it's a kind of strange looking device. It's basically a synthesizer, music synthesizer, that is made of contemporary parts, like the black parts at the bottom. It's something that is new, but part of the device, like the casing, it's a Commodore 64 from the 80s, and the microchips are the one that I've presented before. So this object it's not, you can't buy it there's no market for this. It's a music label called Jatari in Leipzig in Germany. The name is a pun with the word Ja, which is God for the Jamaican, and Atari, the computer brand from the 80s, and they are a music label. They produce different kind of video game music genre, like mixing reggae music with doing reggae music with old sounds of video games. And they sometimes, if you are friends with them, they can produce this kind of device. And they help you to manufacture the object, and sometimes they sell maybe one or two to their friends. It's like €1,000 or so. And that's a kind of intriguing object in the sense that the way it's made, it's a mix of like technologies of the past and technologies of today. They extract microchips from Commodore 64 from the 80s. They put it on a MIDI box, which is like a video game music machines. I won't give more detail about that now. And they reuse the casing as well. And they create this kind of strange artifact that is both an object to produce music and also an artifact that they use to showcase their, they would say their art practice that is based on producing their own musical instruments somehow. And this, of course, has a long tradition in music. Another kind of example that I'm interested in is the work by Benjamin Gollum. You can find him on social media with his idea is recyclism, kind of artist interested in recycling artifact. And he used to run workshop here with Laurence Rosema that he called critical recycling workshops, in which the participants collect digital trash, rubbish, junk that they somehow recycle and turn them into artifacts that have a different kind of meaning and different kind of usage, just as a way to learn how to reappropriate these objects. And he does that in his own art practice, like teaching people how to do it, but also producing a series of installations. This one is called Refunct Media, which is like a pun with defunct media, and he tried to refund them somehow, which means, I mean, the meaning of that is of course a bit mysterious, by interconnecting different pieces of media, electronic devices that he found in junkyards. And he recently started this institute with Jérôme Sinclair called the Internet of Dead Things Institute, which is it started from the idea that with climate emergency, there's like some kind of paradox with having like tons of different devices, electronic devices on the market, and him and Jérôme are more interested in thinking about how to re-employ, reuse, transform dead devices, dead electronic devices, especially in the realms of information and communication technologies, to create new experiences. For instance, one of the specialty is to reuse the Minitel, this like French telecommunication device, which is somehow a mix of a computer and an object that has access to the network. And what they do is to collect some Minitel, which an object that was like, it's no longer, you cannot buy them like only on second-hand markets, but what they do is to tear them apart and try to modify them in a way that it can create new experiences, like playing video games, like accessing the web, and they even created a whole operating system that works on the Minitel. And of course, for them, the object is less interesting than the whole approach to reactivate dead media, and the fact that they use the term institute is just a way to play with this kind of undead devices. This is, I mean, I don't want to like spend too much time focusing on like a lot of examples, but this is a practice that exists in a lot of different territories, and of course all those people are interconnected. This is Gambiarra, which is like a Brazilian practice of hybridizing, reappropriating technologies so that you can create weird or strange-looking device here, like a telephone out of shoes, and this is, I mean, the Gambiarra people and the artists I've presented before, Benjamin, they're all connected, and they generally organize. This year, because of COVID, it was cancelled, but they organized a school in Nevers called No School, where their whole artistic practice is to help people learning how to do these kind of things and appropriate devices. So I'm gonna, like, before giving the mic to François, I just want to say 3 points or 4 points that I find important with regards to art and sustainability and those cases. The first one is the fact that those artists may produce new objects over the course of the project. Like here, this is like another artist that created this kind of recycled video game consoles that you can play with different controllers. It could be recycled, it could be refurbished, it could be conditioned, and that there's a new object. But I might argue that this is just a limited portion of their artistic practice. And they're not necessarily, I mean, they do not necessarily say that the future of technology on this planet is having this new object. What is more important is the fact that in the context of their work, like what I mentioned about the Internet of Dead Things Institute, about No School in Nevers, or even in the work that I've presented before, is the fact that they the practice is related to sharing like a context in which people can learn how to unmake, make, recycle, and transform objects. And this is related to like a whole series of concepts developed, like for instance by Matt Ratto, like a Canadian maker who talks about critical making, how you have to learn how to make critically technological objects if you want to appropriate them. Benjamin Delon has this series of critical recycling workshops. And in a research project I did about smartphone repair shops, I was interested in critical unmaking, how the people in repair shops and in repair cafes learn how to unmake and try to tear down objects so that they could like go beyond their own fear of artifacts in order to probably recycle them or reuse them. And another point beyond the new object and the new context and the sharing part is the fact that there's some kind of like an increasing trend in this collective is to create new places or contexts in which people can do this, basically learning how to reappropriate technologies and sometimes make those object or know-how and expertise circulate. And this is like, could be temporary moments, like here, this is a no school in Nevers where people learn for a week to reappropriate technologies that they found on the street. And it could happen also at the crossroad of like the capitalist system and like more amateur practices in certain hacker spaces and fab labs where people remake or hack objects and sometimes sell them afterwards to other people. And this is what I call the patch of digital bricolage. And one last thing before going to François's project is that the motivations of those artists is not always related to sustainability. They're not necessarily thinking about that from the beginning. They sometimes just do it out of their own motivation because they're fascinated by a certain old artifact, they're fascinated by a certain aesthetic, visual aesthetic or sound processor, and they use the technology of the past to renew it. But more and more they realize that this can play a role in building more sustainable objects or practices by sharing their knowledge. And I do think it's interesting to take this kind of spontaneous way of thinking about sustainability beyond taking it as a goal per se. François, I think we're going to switch to your slides now.
Yes, I just would like to ask you a question about your presentation. One question is, you were speaking about a lot of niches. Could you tell us if it's those practices are mostly with men? What about women in those practices?
Yeah, that's a good question about the gendered aspect of those practices. I would say that the in the first kind of examples I've presented, maybe the most geeky one about like video games and electronic music. Without, I don't necessarily want to be too cliche here, but that's, I mean, it was mostly male. But in the last part, and I try to reflect that with the pictures, like the activities of Benjamin Delon and the activities he made with other artists like Dasha Ilena, Russian female artist in Paris, and they organized together the No School. It's I would say it's much there's much diversity, and back to my own practice and teaching at the school here in Geneva, I would say that most of my students are interested in this, and most of my students are female and not male students in technologies, digital technologies and video game. In my case, it's mostly having like female students super interested in this and absolutely not afraid of technology. If that's the sort of question you had.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer. Loic, I have a problem. I have a message who tell me that the animator deactivated the screen sharing.
Could you retry now?
Great. Yes, it works. Yes. So let me find my file. Should be there. Do you see it?
Yeah, but we see your whole screen, yeah. So it's not on a full screen mode.
Oh yes, I think I made a mistake. So let me.
It's probably when you choose the sharing option, share applications or screen. You quit the sharing.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Let me. Okay. Does it work now?
No.
You have to stop the sharing and start again.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. And then I do again.
Yes.
Sharing, and you choose sharing
and choose the PowerPoint, not the Finder.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We'll cut that part. And we'll edit the video.
Do you see my
part of it?
Yeah.
Can you put it full screen?
Yeah. Is it okay now?
No.
Do you see my presentation?
Part of it.
Yeah, we see a picture with collectif le néant.
There is a delay.
Like we...
Yes. Ah yes. Let me do. Reprendre le partage. Okay. Yes, I must say to the audience that we made a try at 11:30.
And it worked.
Faire passer sur le dessus de votre fenêtre partagée. Does it mean exactly? And now?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
We see it now.
Okay. And you see the change of the slide, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. Yes. I'm gonna speak about a few fieldworks, recent fieldworks, and they are all connected with performing arts and music. Okay, so I think I will speak about three. I will take only 3 examples, and I would like to start with this example, Ufafari. Okay, Ufafari, what is it? It's a sort of mini district with buildings, streets in Berlin, in the West Berlin. In 79, a group of artists and let's say left-wing people, Berliners, came in this place, and they made the occupation of this district. This district was in fact abandoned, and it was until the Second War a place for Ufa, who was one of the bigger cinema firm in Germany. So you see the entrance, and you see, this is one street of the district of the Ufa fabric. Okay, alors what are they doing in Ufa fabric? They have a theater, they have music venues, they have a cinema, they have place where people can learn yoga or classical guitar and so on. In other words, it's a mix of shows, professional shows, and activities, artistic activity for amateurs, people of the district or of the other districts of Berlin. Ufa Fabric is a collective with many people who are working, we decide together. And besides, let's call that the artistic activities, you've got also a restaurant, a grocery, everything is organic, because this collective from the beginning wanted to be dedicated to art and to ecology. So in fact, Ufa Fabric is one of the pioneers of environmental innovation in performing arts, which meant to import environmental knowledges from other areas. So I show you two pictures. On your probably right side, which is my left side, by the way, you see on the roof, you see solar panels. And this is a theater for children. Sorry, I speak German now. And on your left side, I guess, you see a green roof in French, un toit végétalisé. And if you look all the buildings of Ufa, you will see a very subtle, innovative combination of wind turbine, of solar panels, of green roofs, and there is a complete and very complex system in all the district which gives the possibility to use, to make air conditioned with the green roof, to recycle the water, especially the toilets water, to produce with local turbines which work with solar panels, heat, and so on. So in other words, it's almost zero carbon place. And if you speak with Peter, I changed the name, which is the engineer we as from the beginning, from the early 80s, made the conception of all those things. Of course, he worked with all the people of the collective. He said, gave me an example. He said, so that I don't see my text. But anyway, he said that it put a photovoltaic, it's a solar panel system on the green roof, and people were not happy because they said, Peter, you are destroying my green roof, because the photos, the solar panel made shadow on the green roof. But then it took time to see, to watch what happened, and he understood that it was possible to make a very interesting combination between the photovoltaic system and the green roof and so on. So it's really a cybernetical approach. Everything, every technological system about water, waste, heat, sun, and so on are connected. And okay, and the last thing which is interesting also with the experience of the Ufa fabric is that they thought also about the aesthetization of let's say environmental technologies, and here, for instance, you have open air for live concert outside during summer. And the whole, the system to avoid, to disturb with the sound, the districts, the neighbors, has been made only with earth, soil, flowers, trees, and it's very, very, very efficient. It has been copied by many other open airs all around the world. So what we see, it's really a typical but really radical conception of sustainability in music, and it's an environmental and systemic cybernetical approach. But what is true too, it's completely isolated into an ocean of other practices which are absolutely don't use all the technologies in the UFA. Plus, if you look, this is, we are inside of the UFA, this is all the show that you can, all the musical show that you can see and listen at UFA in March 2018, and you see it always changes. You have different show every day in the different musical venue of the UFA. In other words, here, sustainability means a radical reduction of the material impact of performing arts, but it doesn't question the specific form of obsolescence of musical world or performing arts world, which is that the perpetual renewal of show. You always have something new. Those show they play in every part. If they can, they play in every country in the world. But in UFA, everything is clean. And I'm not criticizing this, but because the system is really, really impressive, but they were not able to convince all the professional world to adopt those things. Okay. Yes, I guess I will. I won't speak about that place because I'm a bit late. So now I would like to speak about another place, which is a bit in the German world, a bit alternative, like it was for UFA. Even if Ufafari get a lot of money from the state, German side, and a lot of money from the European community, especially for all the installations. I would like to speak about the place which is called La Méandre, which is, it means, in French, it means beside the river. And it's also owned, if I can speak like that, by a collective of people. And it's a building, it's a fabric, once again, which is not anymore used for industry, in the industrial port of the city of Chalon-sur-Saône, which is a middle town in Burgundy, Bourgogne, in France, east of France, let's say that. Okay. You see the environment, okay? And this is the entrance of La Méandre. And yeah, what is the Méandre exactly? It's a place, yes, where you have different artistical group of companies. Many of them are about music, theater, and especially street theater. Some of them are really integrated in the professional world of street theater. They play sometimes in very countries all around the world, but many of them are half professional. But you have also a group of people who have meet every week to speak about something else, conferences. You have events which are organized by local people, but you have also people who are living there. Few amount of people are living inside of the building. And what interested me, firstly, it's when I met two animators, animators, let's say the leaders of this collective, because they also work together, they have discussions and so on. They introduced them. One is the photograph, and the other it's let's say artist in the sense of visual art. And the first woman told me that she's a psychologist. She works. She still works as a psychologist, and the man is teaching English. And they said in the public school, and they told me that they didn't want to be professional artists for the living. They didn't want to make a living with art, but in the same time, they are very professional because they are very integrated in professional worlds. So you see here you have a picture of the stage. It's bigger than it seems in the photography. You have a small music studio, recording studio from different people who are working inside. Here it's a room where you see it's caravans because they made a very good and successful show in free theater with caravans. And more generally, what is very impressive in this very big building, it's that there is really a taste for junk, waste, not only here for tools, it's to work, but you find a place where it's full of chairs for cinema, you see, for theater, movie. In the other photo, you see it's a place to put woods and metals. Here you see a picture when it's a room when you have only empty gas bottles and old bicycles. If you look, you will see electric devices and so on. So, and it's another example here. It's an apartment where somebody is living, and you see that the heating system it's a bit, it looks a bit like a mouse or something like this. So I would say that here, what we see, it's another approach of sustainability, which is more sort of anthropocenic sensibility. You don't need to be a professional to become an artist in this place. So you can come and say, I would like to do something artistical, and you can integrate or creating a collective. You can be a professional without making a living with art. You can do good quality of art of good quality without earning your money with that. But most of the projects are collective. You can live in a place, have a little flat without being an artist. And of course, it's a local place. People come from other areas, other lands to live there, but they have local events. And last thing, I forgot to, okay, they are very connected with the river, with natural environments. The French word is better, it's milieu. In the same time, they are connected with the global market. So it's another way to be sustainable. And it's environmental, but it's also, let's say, social. And the amateurs and professionals are at the same time certain way in the same level. Yeah. Okay, I think I don't have more time to speak about that, but it's not a problem. I wanted to speak about a project that we made last year with amateurs in my city, Dijon, when amateurs, people from a psychiatric hospital, students, by themselves with performing arts and music, they invented, they tried to imagine their own life after 20 years of climate change. I don't have to present this. You see, we have some maps of in 20 years, installations, readings, music, choir, and theater. What was important for me, it's that in this project is to try and to show if people can use art to imagine ecological worlds without knowing firstly what is ecology, and secondly, without thinking that using art means to be professional. So that's it. I think it's with Nicolas now we have different perspectives and we can maybe speak together about
and also the audience.
Different approaches of sustainability.
Perhaps I can ask a question for you, François, like you did for me. I mean, in what you presented, I'm curious about whether there are tensions or controversies in the collective you presented. Is it like are there moments where people disagree, or some aside from the guy who put the solar panel and he changed the green roof, are there any like stronger kind of tension that you can talk about?
Yes. This example of the solar panel and the green roof, it's typical. I would say typically in the Ufafari, every environmental and technologies have been developed by one guy who came from Siemens, who was a amateur musician and proposed to the collective to, and let's say that the ecological project became real. So he was in charge for almost 40 years now of those systems. So, but he was not the only one involved in that. For instance, in the beginning, it was the green roofs were made by other people. So they had a lot of fights, according to the engineer, Peter. And they always had to discuss, to resolve problems together about how to conduct, to deal with the installation, which goes from trying to have solar panels without aluminium, for instance, to putting together different systems and finding connections and to be more efficient. So of course it was not always very easy, and it's described by Peter like not always very easy. But what we see here also, it's that we have a specialist of technology who has to deal with artists, which is slightly different in La Méandre, where they are more, they like to be poor, I would say, and there is no recycling really of water. Toilets are really very basic, believe me. And but they have a lot of things of waste, and they share this with the people who want for shows, for have a new flat, for imagine a new event. And I've been very struck by that. I don't say that this is sustainability, but I think it's something different when ecology doesn't mean exactly environmental technologies. Yes.
Well, thank you very much, both of you, and I will see if there's some question. I'm just switching. Yeah. So if you have any question, please feel free to ask. And do we have any question in the room? Otherwise, I can maybe start with one question. So we have a question from Charlotte, who's asking, can you elaborate more on the show you did, François, where people try to imagine what it would be like where they will live after climate change? What were some of the results?
Yes, thank you. It's nice to Charlotte to give me time to speak about that. So it was the show was created last year in March 2019, and we had about 100 people involved with professionals who would work with the different groups. And every groups, we had students from the fine art schools, we had of Dijon, we had different students from my university. And as I said, in the psychiatric hospital of the city, there is a place where people who have problem with mental illness come to make art. They do creative writing, visual arts, music, choir, and it's really the concept is that the therapy is firstly collective and secondly by art. It's the yes, no neuroleptics, only music, which is quite fascinating. It's So what we asked to the different group who said, okay, we are in a, could you imagine your life in 20 years, after 20 years of global warming and climate change? And could you, depends of the group, describe this, play this, write about that? So we had, in the psychiatric hospital, we had a group who was creative writing, who wrote stories, songs, and with me, but also with two therapists and the musical therapist. I don't know how to pronounce this in English. Anyway, music therapist. We worked with the choir and the little orchestra, was involved too, and some people wrote music. I made this too, but some people of the group, and we made songs, and yes, and a sort of mini opera. And what I must say that every groups were imagine their life in the special district of the city, not in Dijon, but in the place where they were living, working, or okay. And we made the same with a group of students. We made a theater group, etc. So what do we understood? I would say that we understood three things. That first thing that is that in the beginning, people were very concentrated on it's very dry, we don't have any more to eat, water is missing, no more food. Okay, it's a typical situation. It's very hard, and it was the catastrophist. And many people also was themselves very dry. They said, I don't know what I can imagine, especially in the creative writing. And after a while, people became to invent stories, to write or sing, or to make with visual art or sounds, stories about animals, about connection between non-humans and humans and things like that. And it became, I mean, the logic of art was more important than the idea that it was the end of the world. This is the first thing. Second thing is that in the psychiatric hospital, I have been very, very impressed by the capacity of people, and some of them were very in the bad shape when we started, to invent not only a new world, but as a collective to go in a very high level of, let's say, recovery. And I didn't think that it was me or my partner, Eva, which is a stage director, who was, or the music therapist who was responsible of this incredible energy. But I think that it was really the thing that people stopped to think about their own problem, who can be very hard, and they were concentrate on thinking in the future with art, and something worked. So I would say this, I've been trapped by myself, because me, as a sociologist, I always say that when people say that art can save the world, that art is sustainable, I'm always very reluctant about that. I don't like that. I find this completely normative and really abstract. And but it did work. It worked, of course, in the little place where we were. And my conviction, my idea is that it could work a bit, of course, because we thought about a specific place. We thought as a collective, not local individualities. And of course, it was also the dynamic to put all the people very different together. So it was a local project about a local future, something like that. And the third thing I would like to say is that it failed also to be usual in the city. Many people were involved, many artists, many institutions, but of course didn't help the city to think about the ecological transition in Dijon, because it was only one experience. And the question here, it's very nice to make art and to speak and to imagine stories, music, and theater, narrative. But the question now, it's not now, but it's to connect those narratives with place and understand what we can do exactly with that. And this, I must say, I don't know. I don't know. Yes.
Well, thank you. Maybe now I can ask my questions. Kind of a bit of a challenging question, because one thing but for me was very obvious in both of your presentation is that your examples are coming from kind of alternative practices, or whatever you will call them, like underground or alternative. But by doing this, are you thinking or are you suggesting that solutions or new ideas to think this relationship between sustainability and art, or how to deal with another way of thinking about or thinking about the future, which are coming from this kind of a milieu, like François called them? Do these kind of milieu have a solution, or the other part of the question is, why is it not happening in more institutionalized places and organizations?
This is for Nicolas, I think. Yes.
I mean, the only answer that comes to mind is the fact that back to Baker's definition of art about conventions, the fact that this alternative or underground or scenes that are not necessarily focused on being recognized or just want to do their own stuff makes the convention less normative in a way. I mean, I also mean here that the whole world of arts institutions are normative, but in general, in this kind of context, things are a bit more like flexible, because they don't necessarily think about having like some kind of sedimented kind of practice. They just want to do their thing, experiment, try things with others, build collective, create new kind of practices and share knowledge. And that's, I mean, it's almost like statistically speaking, like they are more experimental in a way that it could be, this kind of practices can be tapped into. But then I would not say that they have solutions. I don't think so. I'm closer to what like François said about the fact that it's local context that like tries try different kind of practices and they share it with collectives, and that's the most important thing to me with regards to say sustainable approaches. Like there's less, I mean, probably there's less limits or less norms that they build, and then they can try them out and build some positive kind of relationship with those practices. I hope you agree with that, François, but that's how I see it.
No, I always follow you anyway, but I would say that I didn't speak about alternative places completely. Okay, I didn't have time to speak about HKW, Haus der Kulturen der Welt, which is a very big institution in Germany who made a lot of transformation and made, especially in 2013 and 2014, a program about the Anthropocene. So it's a very big place. It's one of the only cultural institution founded by the state in Germany. So it was not about, okay, but I didn't speak about that. But in my own project, the big orchestra of the transition, we had we were working in a university with different art schools and the psychiatric hospitals. So it was not absolutely not alternative, and we were founded by public money. So, but my question, I understand the question. I would say this: there is, when we listen to Nicolas, we can think that cultural niches like reggae, 8 beats, like, I mean, all the examples he presented, that especially with technology, it's possible to be sustainable, which means to don't be too much modern, I would say. In place where we're not, places not very connected with big audiences, big market. So my question would be to Nicolas. Do you think that the practices that you are described can become dominant?
I don't know if
the relationship with technology in video games, music, those hard words low technologies could be the rules of very big, of strong and practices will work for many people.
I mean, it's certain that technologies makes certain content or practices scale up because of obvious reasons, where you have an online platform and you can aggregate a lot of people. But the one that I presented are not as advanced as this. Like, it's mostly like building things with digital rubbish, so to say. But then I'm interested in what happens in some. I mean, there are certain parts of the world where like the recycling and the reuse of like old digital technologies are transformed into like reconditioned objects. Like if you have certain shopping mall in China where like people there built an expertise to like do new iPhones based on old iPhones because they recondition them. They build the knowledge out of the Apple/Foxconn manufacturers. Expertise, and they managed to like scale up a little bit. So my impression is that some of those practices could be seen as in foresight. We call that like weak signals of potential change. So it's, yeah, it might, I mean, it's certainly pertinent to observe them. I'm not sure it would like turn into like a kind of overnight success, but I do think that some of them might be like interesting as a sort of pivot to imagine new control practices of tomorrow.
We have one question from.
No.
Guy? No?
I was wondering how much or how to navigate this bit, especially what you mentioned with those hacker cultures. A lot of it is also a fetish with these old tools, machines, especially when it comes to music. I mean, all those sounds you could make them without any problem with a computer, but that wouldn't be okay for a lot of those scenes. So the value comes through this fetish.
Yeah.
And I was wondering how to critically navigate this also as a researcher. And I think it strongly relates to the scale, how big those practices could become, because those kind of practices, you know, where it's really about, I get this, you know, I don't want to criticize it per se, I know similar culture is very fetish about those machines, and okay, this sound is only done by this microchip and it's impossible to reproduce it digitally, and it's not the same. So I was wondering how you did, or how one could, you know, kind of critically navigate this.
I mean, it's clear that it's a situated kind of practice. I mean, of course, personally, I'm interested in that kind of sound, but I wrote a book about like 8-bit radio music, but I would say that now I'm more interested in practice itself, and I don't, this is not my field anymore. I'm more interested in comparing and contrasting those practices with those people, this kind of music scene, to others, like people adjusting, like repairing the condition of smartphones, or other kind of devices, people trying to protect old computers for, like, not in the context of art, but in the context of preserving the memory of those devices, and probably for, like, I don't know, because the content might be relevant for people in the future. So my own way to think about a critical angle is to shy away from the content, like the music or visual art, and think about how the commonalities, the common traits with other practices about reconditioning, reuse, recycling, remaking, etc. And then it allows, at least for myself, it allows me to take a bit of distance, to take a step back from like the fetishism of the technology. And of course, to understand also what beyond like this practice, what is created in terms of knowledge, like the document that is created, that could be helpful for people in the music scene, but then it could be helpful for people trying to preserve technologies for for reasons that are totally disconnected with art and culture, but maybe because it's important for archaeology, for media archaeology, etc.
Yeah.
So that would be my answer.
Yeah, Marie.
So, well, first of all, thank you both so much, Nicolas and François. So we've been here for 2 days talking about art and sustainability, and I see that Karin Ekstrom is also with us, who gave us a keynote yesterday morning on the marketization of art. And I wanted to try and make a link between the two keynotes, because I think they really very nicely, let's say, frame in a certain way many of the discussions we've been having over these past 2 days, over the nice presentations and stimulating presentations that we've had. So already in Karin's presentation, there was this idea that art is increasingly in a process of marketization, and the way I understood it, Karin, was very much turning itself towards consumer demand, let's say, and unlimited consumer demand, and everything that entails in terms of problematic issues in relation to sustainability and its environmental and social dimension. And already yesterday, Karim was asking us to be attentive to, let's say, the systems of provision or the means of production, the craftsmanship actually, that goes into making a blown glass or a fashion item, etc. And it strikes me that the presentations that we've had just now with François and Nicolas really bring us even closer to this notion that Ivan Illich called the tools for conviviality, how to reappropriate the means of production in a world of limits. I also very much like what you said. I think, François, if I heard it right, in your definition of sustainability, you spoke about limits in and of themselves, for themselves. I think this is, or maybe that was my interpretation, but I think this somehow, the examples that you're showing are about reappropriating tools, are about conviviality, sharing, collectivity, these things that are kind of ontologically opposed to the growth imperative, etc., which drives much of our unsustainable production and consumption. So that was my sort of aha moment, I guess, over the course of these 2 days, this attention that we could place on production processes. And I think we're also speaking from a privileged position, of a context where teenagers have the time and resources to find these products on eBay. I spent much of my PhD research in the Philippines, in Manila. And I can tell you that a 4-year-old child in the slums in Manila knows the value of a bottle of PET plastic PET, knows exactly how much that bottle is worth almost on a day-to-day basis. I think much of the rest of the world has been much better than we have at sort of reappropriating or reusing, in your language, refurbishing products. And somehow we have been pulled into this limitless consumer society, and art has very much fed into this dynamic. This what Karim was talking about, the museums that merchandise themselves as a form of branding. So Karim is also with us, and I guess I just wanted to give you my reflections on a way of bringing together the keynotes and what I've been hearing and listening to in these 2 days, and see if anybody wanted to maybe react to that or say some final comments in relation to your presentations.
François?
Karim?
Yes, yes, I think I agree. No, I would say 2 things about that. It's okay. Not to reply, to answer directly, but to focus on two things. The first is when we speak about art and sustainability in many art worlds, especially in professional worlds, but it's true also in ecological worlds. I'm speaking about philosophers, political activists, and so on. Everybody knows what means ecology, sustainability, and everybody knows what is art. And this is not my case. I don't know what is art. And okay, so I don't know if art can help to improve sustainability of the society, because what does it mean art? Nothing. It depends what kind of art, where you are doing, what for, etc. And sustainability in the Anthropocene context, you can call this as you like. Can say, I heard yesterday discussion about Capitalocene. Doesn't matter. The thing is that the world is exploding, and also the way to understand the world is exploding. It's clear that ecology is not anymore a question of nature or question of saving nature or planet or things like that. So yeah, so this is my first point. We have to, people invent the way to make art, and and ecology has to be rethinked. And largely rethinked by by Youth Climate and Greta. This is my first point. Now, Nicolas and me, we focused on local practices. My examples are local in the sense, meaning that situated, and Nicolas, they are not local in the sense they are from a special place, but it's local in the meaning that it's specific activities. Okay, with Nicolas examples, they can be in different places of the world. So they are not really okay, but the question is to answer to the exploding world. We need global answers, and I don't think that art can give global answers, and don't think that local art can give global answers, but it can help to experience something different. And I think this is yes, and the something different can be different. I'm not sure if I'm clear, but yeah, we have a problem with that we emphasize local practices, niches, or etc. And in the same time, we need to think, to imagine, to experience new worlds, because we cannot change the world only with wind turbines and to going from oil to sustainable electricity. It's not a project, this. So yeah, art and sustainability, it's not easy. I just want to add one word. That's in the art world and in also the academic world, there is a tendency to give to art the role to not to now to be conscious of the disasters, but to reconnect with the life forms, to understand the Anthropocenes and things like that. And I don't understand those things. I think completely abstract and even a bit dangerous also. Doesn't mean nothing to understand the life forms. It's don't want to be too near from the bats. I don't want to get a virus. It's to understand the connection between art and sustainability. We have to resign, to stop to think that art can be a sort of tools to illustrate philosophical or concept ideas. We have to stop with that. I think it's very important. Yeah.
Thank you. Karin, did you want to say anything? Closing remarks. You're on mute. Yeah.
I'm hopeless. Here I am. Sorry. Well, thank you for very interesting presentations and the keynote, and also all this afternoon. Very, very interesting. Well, no, I thought about, a lot of thoughts going on in my head, but I thought this distinction we have in modern society between production and consumption is not a good distinction, of course. And I think since I've been thinking a lot about the meaning of consumption in my life, I think also now more and more about the meaning of art. And I really think that art can bring people together. So from a sustainability perspective, this is what I really think is important. And I think, other reflections I've had is also when we talk, what type of art do we talk about? Do we talk about, fine art or other type of art? And I think there is a lot of research to be done on the meaning of art for people, not only in cities, but in villages, etc. I think, we know from a consumption perspective and how people experience art, we know too little about how people with different backgrounds actually experience art. So I've been thinking about, wow, it would be interesting to do research on this much more. And also another thought that are going through my head is the importance of doing interdisciplinary research. I mean, I've always believed in this. And this workshop has really over and over again made me think, you know, oh, I get very much energy, and I find it very stimulating that you can you know, get new ideas and see things from different perspectives. So I think also there we need to meet interdisciplinary as well, much more actually than what we do, I think, as researchers. So in summary, very much energy for me. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Any other closing comments, Nicolas? Did you want to have the final word? Or?
My brain is flat brain now, but then the last thing that came to mind listening to your comment is the notion of limits and how limits. I mean, it's not something that is intrinsically bad, and that it could be. I don't want to use the word creative, of course, but that's in the context of what I've presented, in the opposition between production and consumption. Those technologies that they do their artwork with is certainly. I mean, from an external perspective, it's not something very easy to understand what it is, how to use it, but they still do manage to do something with it. So limits are here to be circumvented, and in doing so, like the critical making and making, generate knowledge, occasion to be together and situated knowledge, and that's, I think, it's not necessarily a solution that would be global, but at least it's something. And it's back to the conviviality discourse about image. So things could be convivial even though they're not convivial from image perspective because they're limited. So people circumvent that, and the artist or other people.
And it brings people together, like Karim was saying. I like that also. Yeah. Great.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.